Right, on Wednesday, the 6th of November, the American people have voted and made their decision. Trump won the election, actually in quite an overwhelming advantage. The final result was 295 electoral votes in Trump's favor versus Kamala Harris's 226. Now, Trump is not yet the president, so he currently has no powers. He will be sworn in on the 6th of January. But before this, he has already made a ton of promises, including the most biggest one, his promise to end the war in the Middle East. But then again, he has no powers before 6th of January, so I'm not too sure how he's going to do it. Anyway, this is how the markets have reacted. It's pretty clear which president that the stock markets prefer. Yeah, the US S&P 500 index shot up by 4 to 6% right after Trump's victory, and it is up by 26.47% on a year-to-date basis. If we take a look at the Magnificent Seven stocks, yeah, Nvidia, Google, Microsoft, each of these stocks are easily up by 4 to 6%, but Tesla has surged by almost 30%. Yeah, that is in large part due to Elon Musk's unwavering support towards Trump. It's fair to say that the biggest factor to Trump's victory is Elon Musk. He has contributed hundreds of millions of dollars to his campaign and also spoke of Trump on his X Spaces as well as tweets. Now, if you look at other assets across the board, gold has also hit new all-time highs recently of $2,789, but it has retraced right after Trump's victory. Well, that's because Trump has promised to, quote-unquote, promised to end the war. Not so sure whether he's able to do it or not. And if you know gold, right, you know gold tends to perform better during times of geopolitical conflict. So if Trump managed to stop the war, then we do expect some retracement for gold. But long-term wise, I do expect gold to continue going up in price. That's because the Federal Reserve will continue to reduce interest rates. In other words, there will be more money in the ecosystem, and scarce assets such as gold and Bitcoin, they are likely to continue going up. And speaking of the latter, yeah, Bitcoin is currently about $50 away from the $80,000 mark, a new all-time high. Shot up recently because Trump has openly endorsed Bitcoin multiple times in the past. In a Bitcoin conference, I think in July, he said he wants to make the US the center hub of cryptocurrency adoption and self-custody. Yeah, which is why after his victory, you see Bitcoin shooting up by 14 to 20%. And on a year-to-date basis, Bitcoin is up by almost 90%. That is 3x gold's performance. But we take a look at the dollar has also made quite a dramatic comeback, strengthened against other major currencies. Well, that's mainly because of Trump's policies. He favors higher inflation and growth, which will force the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates higher for longer. At the end of the day, higher interest rates lead to a stronger currency. That's why you're seeing the dollar strength over here. USD MYR pair has since retraced back to 4.38. Now, MIDF, they've made a bold prediction in September, saying that, oh, we expect the ringgit to hit 4.03 against the US dollar. So I'm not too sure whether this prediction is still in play or not, because right now we are pretty far away. And other research firms, after Trump's victory, they have already come up with new predictions. And most notably, Hong Leong Bank Research, they expect the ringgit to end the year at 4.5, in large part due to the Federal Reserve keeping interest rates higher for longer. But only time will tell to see if either of the predictions come true. And meanwhile, Trump's win will also be bad news for China as well as Chinese stocks. So if you do invest in Chinese assets, then you're going to expect some weakness in the next year because his campaign plans to impose additional tariffs of 60% or more on Chinese goods. He plans to not rely too much on China and make US production skyrocket again. Okay. And this is sort of like a double whammy, right? Because if the Chinese economy underperforms, then the Chinese yuan will continue to weaken, which it has already weakened against the US dollar. And that sort of translates to a similar weakness to the Malaysian ringgit as well. The Malaysian ringgit is sort of correlated to the Chinese yuan versus the US dollar. So, in simple sense, if the Chinese yuan weakens, you do expect the ringgit to weaken along with it as well. Stocks rally. Yeah, Trump, like what I said just now, he favors higher inflation, more growth, less regulation, lower taxes for big corporations, more oil production, drill baby drill. That was his sort of like a mantra, lah, okay? And this will benefit equities, yeah, mainly sectors such as Bitcoin. I've showed you guys a chart just now. Banks, tech, defense, and fossil fuels. In fact, Goldman Sachs, they estimate that the S&P 500 earnings will increase by about 4% if Trump successfully enacts his tax cut to 15% from 21%. So apart from this, I expect green energy stocks to suffer because the president-elect is not really a fan of going green. He has said multiple times in the past he thinks climate change is a hoax. And then after his victory, he said that during his inauguration, he will delete the climate policy of the US. So definitely you do expect green energy as well as climate change stocks to underperform. Now, a lot of people are looking at the markets right now and asking the same question, right? Because US stocks at an all-time high, Bitcoin at an all-time high, gold near its all-time high, right? Everybody is asking, should I invest now or not? Right? Because during the start of the year, everybody was also saying the same thing, right? S&P was at an all-time high. A lot of people were scared to invest. But rather than asking this question, when to invest and trying to time the market, why not you try this approach? Ask yourself whether you are underexposed or overexposed. Now, this strategy is currently being used by me and a lot of financial planners slash portfolio managers worldwide. They rely on this strategy. They don't really time the markets one. The question is whether they're underexposed or overexposed. So let's say you plan to have 20% allocated in the US market. And currently you have 0%. You didn't allocate anything yet because you're afraid to go in, it's still so high. In this case, you are underexposed. And no matter what, you should allocate a bit and see where the markets go. So don't directly fill in your portfolio 20% in the US market. Don't do that, right? You try maybe 5, 6, or even 7%. Then as the months progress ahead, you see where the US market goes. If the US market goes up, that's great news for you because you already secured your initial exposure, right? But if the US market goes down, something like this, goes down by 10, 20, or even 30%, that is also good news for you because in this case, you are also underexposed. Yeah, that will prompt you to invest even more. Now, on the flip side, what if you're overexposed? Now, what if you currently invested in Bitcoin since 2016, you bought it at 10,000 US dollars, and now you're at an 8x profit, right? So you set yourself a target, right? Let's say you plan to have 10% of your portfolio in Bitcoin, but currently it has increased to 30, 40, or even 50%. Yeah, in this case, you are overexposed in this particular asset, and you should take profits, rebalance to whichever asset that is weaker or a lower weightage before you regret. Okay, so after this session, have a look at your entire portfolio. Yeah? Make sure you include EPF inside as well. And then fix a specific percentage for each investment. And then ask yourself whether you're underexposed in said asset or overexposed. Okay, at the end of the day, just rebalance them accordingly. Right, let's move on over to tax reliefs. So less than 2 months left for Malaysians to maximize their tax reliefs. I can already hear Mariah Carey singing. So doing so could save you or hundreds or even thousands of ringgits. So here are the notable ones that you should look out for. Now, first things first, a bit on how taxes work. Taxes in Malaysia are progressive. You don't get taxed a fixed percentage based on your income. Rather, you will gradually pay more as your earnings increase. So let's say your monthly salary is 4K, which adds up to 48,000 ringgit annually. The first 5,000 ringgit will not be taxed. The next 15,000 ringgit will be taxed 1%, 150 ringgit. The following 15,000 ringgit will be taxed 3%, that's 450 ringgit. Your remaining 13,000 ringgit will be taxed 6%, that adds up to 780 ringgit. So your total taxes before reliefs is 1,380 ringgit. Now let's say in March or April next year, you fill in your tax form. Yeah, by default, you'll be eligible for this 9,000 ringgit tax relief. And on top of that, you have an additional 4K in tax deductions. So your total deductions is 13K. So you just directly deduct from your total income, 48K minus 13K. Then your taxable income drops to 35,000 ringgit. Now in this case, you'll see that you fall into a lower tax bracket entirely, just from tax reliefs alone. Yeah, previously you were at category D, which you need to pay 780 ringgit in taxes. But now since you get like a 13K tax relief, you are back to category C. In this case, you only need to pay 600 ringgit in taxes. To top this off, if your annual income does not exceed 35,000 ringgit, you get a juicy tax rebate of 400 ringgit. So the total tax that you should pay at the end of the day is only 200 ringgit versus 1,380 ringgit. That is why, if you can, you should do your best to see which area you can maximize your tax reliefs. Just don't purposely spend for tax reliefs because at the end of the day, you are still paying the 70, 80 or even 90%. But if you have those receipts, right, you bought earlier during the year or you need some stuff, then make sure you fill in your tax form and get those juicy tax reliefs. So the first one, lifestyle, 2,500 ringgit applies to yourself, spouse or child. Any reading material, physical or electronic, as long as it's not bad. Your e-books, your novels, so on and so forth. Personal computers, smartphones or tablets. Now note, it only applies to these three things. It doesn't apply to keyboard, doesn't apply to monitor, doesn't apply to smartwatches. But if let's say you buy a desktop, a CPU, a keyboard, monitor in one single receipt, then you'll be eligible for this lifestyle relief of 2.5k for your entire receipt. Fees for any upskilling or self-enhancement courses. And the last one is internet subscription, has to be under your own name. So moving on, that's sports equipment, 1,000 ringgit for yourself, spouse, child or parents. Sports equipment applies to all the short-term lifespan equipment, shuttlecocks, golf balls, basketballs, etc. But sports shoes and sports clothing, they are considered as sports attire. So they are not eligible for this relief. So don't go back today and say, I want to buy my Adidas shoe and claim it under this relief. Yeah, that does not work. Entry, rental fees for sports facilities, your registration fees for sports competition, gym membership fees, sports training fees. And the next one is contributions to EPF, up to 7,000 ringgit. The first 4K applies to your voluntary or mandatory EPF contributions, which if your salary currently exceeds 3,030 ringgit, next year, March or April, when you fill in your tax form, immediately just fill out the 4K. Because you would have already maxed out the first 4K in mandatory contributions. Then the remaining 3K, let's say you voluntarily contributed to EPF any amount this year, up to 3K, well, you'll be eligible for tax relief. Next is for first-time home buyers, 7K. Your house price is below 500K, then you get 7K. Your house price is between 500K to 750K, you get 5K in tax reliefs. But this does not apply to home purchases made this year. It is only effective next year until December 2027. And finally, a few other notable ones, your SOCSO, definitely you have to max this out, right? You automatically max it out. Your PRS, your SSPN, your education per unmarried child, 2,000 to 8,000 ringgit. Now this is just scratching the surface on the number of tax reliefs. I'm just providing you guys the notable ones. At the end of the day, you can do a quick Google search to see the full list of tax reliefs and check out which ones that you're eligible to claim. Now on the topic of PRS, a lot of people are asking this question. Should I invest in EPF or PRS first to maximize my tax relief? Well, of course, you try and maximize your EPF first because EPF, the returns have been pretty steady in the past 5 to 10 years. Annual return is 5.5%. Once you max out this remaining 3K already and you still want to deduct your total income, well, you can look to contribute to PRS. And just nice, Versa, they're currently running a campaign for their PRS, all of the funds. You contribute to any PRS funds, you get 100 ringgit in cash rewards, provided you max out the 3K. Okay, and Versa's PRS growth, honestly, recently the returns have been quite good. It's 10%, the 1 year return, which is double EPF's annual return. Mainly invests in Malaysian equities, Malaysian stocks, 42, almost 43% allocated in Malaysian equities. But if you are planning to invest a lot of money in PRS, make sure you double check the fund's annualized returns, because you can't just look at it, the 1 year return, and then get convinced by this. You have to dig more into it. You have to take a look at the fund's prospectus and see what are their 3-year, 5-year, 10-year returns. So for this example, right, Versa's PRS growth, right, the fund was created in 2012. Since its inception, it has only garnered an annualized return of 4.8%. So on the surface, right, it may seem very attractive, but in the past like 10 or even 20 years, right, its annual return it doesn't even beat EPF. So in this case, you might as well just put that money into EPF, right? Because EPF gives you 5.5%. Yeah, that's why for those of you guys who are looking to invest in PRS, check the fund's prospectus 2 or 3 times. Make sure the analyzed return is higher than EPF's return, or at least higher than inflation. Okay, otherwise it's really no point to invest. Then Versa also has a number of different quests. Honestly, it's a bit confusing to me. Personally, I don't do a lot of these quests because there's so many things going on. But if you have the free time, you have the spare money, right? You can get up to 7.52% per annum net returns for your balances in Versa Cash as well as Versa Cash IRA. So yeah, new user, download the app. We are affiliates with Versa, I think like 2 years already. One of the best cash apps. Okay, I say it based on my honest opinion. If you're a new user, use our referral code. You get a 10 ringgit reward for your first deposit of 100 ringgit and above. So we have one for Mud. The election definitely opened my eyes on how big events act as a cue that would reflect the market. In your opinion, what are some upcoming events that would show similar effects as this election? His inauguration? Outside of politics, what should we tune in? So I'll answer this question first. If you don't have the time to keep updated with market news and all these type of things, well, then you should subscribe to the Futurist. Okay. Well, a bit shields aside, you definitely have to keep track of what's happening around the world, especially the political sector. Trump's inauguration will definitely also impact the markets, but it also depends on whether he follows through what he has promised and all these type of things. Reduction in corporate tax, like making the US a center for cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin adoption. He has said a ton of things lah. And previously, during his previous administration from 2016 to 2020, he didn't really do a lot of things that he said lah. So the market wasn't really happy about that. But if Trump does what he says, then you do expect the market to continue to rally, regardless of whether, at the end of the day, regardless of whether he does do what he says or not, the S&P will still go up. Yeah, because that's what the S&P does. If you have a look at a chart of the S&P index, no matter who's president, no matter what they've been doing, right, the S&P has been on a steady uptrend since the past decade or pretty much forever lah. If you go back to previous trends, yeah, you can see how much, even though the COVID pandemic has led to the S&P falling by 20 to 30%, long-term wise, it will always recover. Okay, so you probably shouldn't be too bothered unless you're a trader. Okay, if you're investing for long term, then short-term volatility as well as downturns, it shouldn't be like a big problem for your portfolio. Okay, outside of politics, what should we tune in? I think we should definitely look at the Middle East conflict also. Yeah, because it's escalating. Israel recently launched an attack, and then after that, the Middle East also tried to respond. So this is an area that we need to keep track of and have a look at how it will impact global markets, especially gold, right? Gold has been up this year, mainly because of the geopolitical conflict, but also due to central banks around the world. They don't want to rely too much on the US dollar. They're starting to buy up gold in large quantities, especially China. I think Singapore is also doing the same thing. Okay, so yeah, next question, rookie question, as I am not at all exposed to how taxes work. What about side incomes, e.g. freelance jobs on the weekend, realized profits, etc.? So yeah, freelance jobs, if you are currently not employed but you're doing freelancing work, at the end of the day, it's considered as income, which you need to report to, which you need to file your tax. Okay, and if your annual income exceeds 34,000 ringgit, then you definitely have to file for a tax. You file for your tax. Otherwise, it's considered illegal. Realized profits. This one depends on how often you are realizing those profits. Yeah, if you're like doing it once a year, you're investing for long term, and then you're just like rebalancing your portfolio, then there is no capital gains tax in Malaysia. Right? This one you don't need to pay tax. But if let's say you're trading frequently, you make dozens of trades in a single day, and then you earn like a 5-digit profit in a week or something like that. In this case, it's considered as income, and you should check with LHDN whether you need to pay tax or not. Okay. So how is MYR versus USD outlook? Is it still possible to maintain 4.2 prediction by the end of this year? So our stance at the Futurist, we've been kind of optimistic for the ringgit, we posted multiple times. We think that I think lah particularly that the ringgit will probably end the year at 4.20. I've been saying this since, I don't know, August or maybe even July itself. And then the ringgit suddenly shot through my prediction and went to 4.09 before going back to 4.38 territory. That said, the fundamentals of Malaysia have not changed, right? The big reason why we are seeing the ringgit retrace right now is entirely because of the US dollar. Because Trump has been elected, and like what I covered earlier during the session, he favors higher inflation, more growth that will force the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates higher for longer, right? All this is fine. But if you take a look at Malaysia, our fundamentals have not changed. If we continue to attract foreign investors, right, continue to make it easier for foreigners to invest in our country, as well as continue to maintain our growth projections, then I think possibly the ringgit could go back down to 4.20 by the end of the year. But at the end of the day, anything can happen in the markets. Okay, so a lot of people also ask this question: when is the best time for me to convert a currency in order to go for holiday or go studies abroad? Well, the answer is if you have already saved up in that foreign currency enough already. Let's say your budget is I don't know 5,000 US to go to the United States to study or holiday, something like that, 5,000 US for that month lah, and you've already saved up enough in US dollars, then you should convert ASAP. Yeah, you should convert ASAP and not wait for the market to go in your favor, because at the end of the day, things like this happen, right? And you don't want to be caught in the bad side of it lah. Okay, so if you have enough money in the foreign currency, convert ASAP. Don't try and speculate lah. Okay. Green energy stocks mentioned means like renewable energy stock. Yeah, I think probably applies to renewable energy stocks, EVs, solar vehicles. Now, Tesla is an exception, yeah, because Elon Musk is a huge supporter, huge donator of Donald Trump. And that's why his company, Tesla, surged over 44%. Actually, it's 44% if we include this bump up over here in the past 2 weeks. Okay? But other than that, we do expect renewable energy stocks generally to underperform. At least that's based off on what research firms are saying. Still new to stocks, would you recommend M Plus or Mumu better? I will say this, I'm not sponsored by any broker at the moment. Quite a few of them have approached me and say that they want me to talk about them. But Mumu right now, they are the lowest fees in the market. Now, compared to Rakuten, compared to M Plus Global, right? Mumu currently has the lowest fees. Okay, so you can probably check out Mumu. And if I'm not mistaken, they're also offering like a 5% reward for their cash plus. Yeah, 5%. 5% per annum guaranteed reward on your first balance up to 10,000 ringgit in Mumu's one of Mumu's money market fund. Yeah, so you can go and check it out. What's your TP for Bitcoin and Ethereum? Well, I can't directly review my take profits, okay? Because like what I said just now, I don't trade the markets. I'm a long-term investor. I always ask myself, I look at my portfolio every week. If you're a Patreon member, if you're a Gatherer member, you'll get to look at my portfolio. I update it every week. The question boils down to whether I'm underexposed or overexposed or not. And like what I explained just now, right? I fix a specific percentage for each particular asset within my portfolio. So like Bitcoin for me, maximum 10%. Okay, and I have like a 5% uh, fluctuation. So if it goes up to 15, then only I start to reduce it back down to 10. So that's sort of like my TP point. Okay, if Bitcoin continues to rally and then the exposure of BTC within my portfolio goes higher than 15%, yeah, that's a signal that I'm overexposed. I will take profits, rebalance it to whichever asset that is currently weaker right now. So I think that you can probably try this sort of approach, within your own portfolio. Ask yourself, what is the percentage I want for Bitcoin in my portfolio? What is the percentage I want for Ethereum in my portfolio? The percentages for US stocks, Malaysian stocks, EPF, etc., right? And plan ahead, rebalance accordingly from overexposed to all those assets that are underexposed. This strategy really removes a lot of emotions and timing in the market. Okay. So next one, is it safe to buy bank shares using Momo, like RHB Bank's share itself or any other platforms? So Momo, M Plus Global, Rakuten, these three brokerages, right? They are all regulated by the Securities Commission. Now, being regulated by the Securities Commission doesn't mean it's entirely safe. It just means that, oh, they have went through some rules and regulations in order to be registered as a licensed exchange. Okay, so I think it's fine to buy bank shares in Moomoo. Personally, I'm using Rakuten. Yeah, I use Rakuten for a long time already, and I'm sort of like lazy to switch over. Okay, but I think Moomoo is fine as well. A shout out to all our gatherer members: CH, Andrew, Wendy, Alex, CC, Urshad, Caveman, Kelvin, Tommy, Jinkang, Adrian, JS, Wenyan, Dean, Duhan, Sufi, Faris, Alan Jackson, Raizan, Hudson, G. Jeffrey, Lawrence, Lukman, Will, Jack, YC, Arif, Hazik, Jinden, Adam, Ashley, Sean, Jason, Putra, Alvin, Jiachen, Aldrin, Chai Wei, and Fahmi. Thank you all so much for your support, not to mention our learner members as well. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's session. Hope you guys learned something. I'll see you guys in the next session, next Sunday, 10 p.m. Right. Bye, guys. Good night.